Welcome to The PA is In, the show created by PAs for PAs, where codependency with your supervising physician is a thing of the past, optimal team practice is the future, and physician associate has taken the place of physician assistant as the professional title of choice. I'm Tracy Bingaman, and I'm obsessed with redefining what success as a PA looks like and what it feels like. Here you'll find the mindset shifts, systems, and processes I use to escape healthcare burnout and integrate my work into my life. Work-life balance is a myth, and an integrated life where you thrive professionally, not a balancing act, is the goal here. My mission is to help you to grow into a unicorn PA who loves their job, has abundant energy, time to spare, and work-optional financial freedom. The PA is in. Welcome back to The PA is In, the show created by PAs for PAs, where codependency with your supervising physician is a thing of the past, optimal team practice is the future, and physician associate has taken the place of physician assistant as the professional title of choice. Today, we're talking to one of my friends, Melissa Kolowitz. Melissa is going to talk to us about navigating job change, about some issues that she faced with an unruly office manager, how she found her unicorn job, and how from the very first day interviewing with that attending, she set some ground rules and built some boundaries and created a life that she enjoys so much more than the one she was living before. We're going to dive deep into finding your worth outside of medicine and outside of what you do at work, and reminding you that you are worthy simply because you are you. I cannot wait to share this episode with you. Without further ado, my friend, Melissa. If you only take one sheet of paper to your next negotiation, let it be the PA Pay One Sheet. It's a tool designed to walk you through setting up the ideal outcomes, assessing the situation you are negotiating in, and it even includes a reminder of which negotiation skills you can use. Stop what you are doing. Download the One Sheet, print it out, fill it out, and literally bring it to the table with you when you are negotiating next. It's designed specifically to work in healthcare settings wherever you are. You can use the PA One Sheet to get the best deal, the biggest raise, and to help your confidence walking into your next negotiation. Head to www.tracybingaman.com/one, that's ONE, to download your free copy of the PA Pay One Sheet and start prepping for your next negotiation today. It's linked in the show notes, but in case you missed it, it's at www.tracybingaman.com/ONE. All right, Melissa, well, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. I'm really excited to dive into some of these topics. So tell us a little bit about you and what you do for work.
So my name is Melissa. I'm a PA for 9 years now. It's really my second career. I was a surgical tech before I decided to go to PA school. And this is now my third position. I started out in general surgery, did that for about 7 years. I had a little brief hiatus into interventional radiology at a children's hospital. And now I work in Urogyn and minimally invasive gyn.
Cool. So let's talk about a little bit of navigating those job changes and what you loved and what you didn't love and what sort of sparked you to make the changes that you did as you navigated through your career.
Yeah, so my general surgery job was like my dream job. It was, I got into it right out of school. I was working with an attending that I knew and loved from when I was a scrub tech. So, and he was like the perfect doctor. He was always kind. And I was just like, this is the greatest job ever. And so that's where I landed just to start. And I learned a ton of great information. I really, that's really all of my surgical background. I always tote back to him. Like, he was the cornerstone of me being the great surgical PA that I was. So I kind of had that, dedication to this one person there for a long time. But then I kind of, as the years went on, I was being asked to do more when everybody else in my group wasn't. And because I'm, we're all kind of people pleasers, I think. As, healthcare providers, we all want to make everybody happy and always do the right thing. So I would just keep giving, and I gave and gave and gave, and I reached a point where I just couldn't do it anymore. And it really became evident to me whenever my office manager would say things like, you should be grateful to have your office assistant do all your work for you at the Christmas party. And I'm like, okay, all right, that's not a joke. She's very serious. And so I tried to really sort of brush those things off. But, my attending really wasn't my boss, and my office manager was. And I think that's the craziest thing in medicine. Your supervisor isn't even a medical provider. So how can they actually supervise you, right? And it just, sort of those events became more and more frequent. And then we went into lockdown, and, I was the only one working from home. I was the only one doing office visits from home on my own device. And, we all sort of did what we had to do. And then when we came back into the office, I just, that just kept that sort of level persisted. And I just decided that, I had to stick up for myself, and I just couldn't let myself be in a situation like that anymore. And so I left, and it was the hardest thing to talk to my attending about, this person that I kind of put up on this pedestal and thought so highly of. But I had to do it for myself, and I'm 1,000 times happier for it. I transitioned to a children's hospital in interventional radiology for about 8 months. They really just wanted somebody to do H&P updates, and that just kind of wasn't in my wheelhouse. It's just, you're a surgical PA, and I know how you understand what I mean. It just wasn't something for me. And I just started putting out applications. Anything surgical that I could find, I put out an application. And my now attending asked the office manager to contact me about it. And I was like, well, I don't know, this just doesn't sound right for me. A couple weeks later, he personally emailed me with this big long email about who he was and who he worked with and who he knew that I knew, and, ask all these people and talk to them. And I just love to have a conversation with you about it. And I just said, well, this person has gone out of their way to contact me. I will oblige them and at least give them a conversation. And that's kind of how I ended up here, where I am now.
So tell me about this deciding to leave, because I think this is something that a lot of people grapple with. And I have been in that situation where, the office manager is not great. Again, never been a clinician, doesn't quite get it for good, bad, or otherwise. They've never been in the situation that you're in. Maybe they don't understand the role of a PA. Maybe they don't really respect you. They consider you to be less than the surgeon or the physician that you're working with. Was this gradual? Was there something that the straw that broke the camel's back where you're like, enough is enough, when things were piled on and the relationship was sort of tenuous? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, as my first job out of school, I really tried to play nice, and I really tried to please everybody and, do all the things. And I think that's a mistake, right? Because you set that precedent right off of the bat that I'm willing to do anything and everything that you ask of me, no matter what. And I think that is the trap that a lot of us fall into, because once you set that precedent of, Melissa is always available, Tracy's always available, you're always going to show up, you can always make a phone call, you can always give more. Oh, you're at a picnic on the weekend, but there aren't any residents around, can you come in? Sure. Once you just you keep giving all of those inches and they turn into miles, right? And then that becomes what's expected of you. As far as the office manager goes, I just think that she felt like she didn't have control over me, because I was at the whim of my attending, but she wanted to show her weight and rein me in because she was the one doing my reviews every year. Really, what I said, I can remember the day when I was like, this is it. It was just coming back from quarantine. We just started cases back up. And there was always a million emails about when you should isolate. And so I had worked the day before with somebody who came up positive, and there was this back and forth with her about, who do you call? And this was just all, in the early days when nothing was clear as mud, right? And she said, well, you should stay home. So I stayed home the next day and logged on and was answering, messages from home. And she just wanted to know why I was home. And I screenshotted our conversation.
Yeah, remember this?
Circled it in red and sent it back to her. And, her response was, well, that's because I thought you had an exposure. I'm like, wait a minute, this is what you told me to do. And it was just at that, I just, that was it. When I came back in, I had a conversation with her about, expectations. At that point, I was the only one who was rounding out of the 4 Ps in our group anymore. Everybody else didn't have to do it. It was just everybody came and went, whenever they wanted. And I wasn't allowed to do those things. And I just decided that, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If everybody else can do these things, then why can't I? And she wasn't willing to budge. And I said, that's it. I can't do this anymore. That was it right there.
And that's a very hard situation to be in, because I think we walk this tightrope of wanting to be a linchpin in our organization, right? We want to be wanted. We want to be needed. We want to be useful. We desire to be productive and efficient members of the team. But as you said, when you don't have boundaries, it's really hard to build them when the expectation has become you're always available, you're always on call, you're the go-to person. And I think there's part of our ego that likes to be the go-to person. That makes you feel good. Oh, no one else can do this but me. I'm the only one. And that feels good unless or until you try to step away or be on vacation or build a boundary and be out at a picnic, like you said. And then they call you and you're like, what makes them think you can do this? And then you think and you're like, oh, every other time they've ever done this, I've said yes, or I've gone in, or I've bailed them out, or I've called in the prescription or discharged the patient remotely, whatever it is that they're calling and asking about. And you have this moment where you're like, well, why would they think? And then you're like, oh, crap. I trained them to think that I would be available because I always have. So how did you change that as you transitioned into a new job? What have you done differently in your current position to make sure that you don't end up like that again?
It really started with my very first conversation that I had with my now attending. And I just pretty much laid it out. I said, this is the environment that I was in. These are the skills that I possess. I only work in the OR at this point. If we rarely admit anyone. And if we do, I will discharge them, maybe 1 or 2 discharges a month. So I'm really only covering OR and answering phone calls that come in from post-op patients. So I laid it out, and I've thought for sure that I was never going to get a phone call back from this person. I said, my skills are in the operating room. If you're looking for an office scribe, not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's not for me. And if that is something that you are looking for with an expectation that I'm going to fulfill that, this relationship is not going to last past a few months. And, not to be disrespectful, but that doesn't make sense for you to hire somebody who's just not going to be happy in that role. So I said that, I didn't want to work any call. I didn't want to work any nights. I didn't want to work any weekends. I'd be happy just to go to the OR. I asked about rounding schedules, because I'm used to being in the hospital 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning to round, and then you stay until OR is done, whenever the heck that is, right? I was just very clear about what I guess it was very clear about what I didn't want to do.
Also, yeah, sure.
Very clear about what I did not want. And I thought, because that is the first time in this profession that I've ever sort of, laid the line down like that. And I thought that they're never going to call me. They're not going to call me back. And kid you not, 20 minutes later, he called me back and he's like, I really would like for you to come work with me.
Wow.
I was shocked. That it actually worked.
I think that is so important for people to hear. I want more people to hear that you said, specifically, like not vaguely at all, that you said, this is my skills. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm willing to do. This is what I am absolutely, positively unwilling to do. And that someone said, I see the value in you. And as someone who's hiring someone, you want someone who like has healthy boundaries and is definitive and knows what they're good at and knows what their limits are. That's a good team member, because that team member raises their hand when they're in over their head or says like no to the patient who's mistreating them. Like they are going to stand up to other people just like you were standing up to that person. And it doesn't have to be, I think there's part of us that's like, oh, well, that's a little aggressive.
Right. And that's how I felt. But, you know, here I am, you know, a year and a half into it, and I couldn't be happier. Like leaving that job that I felt so attached and had so much meaning in my own self-worth was the best thing that I could have ever done.
So let's talk about this identity issue and how who we are is so closely linked to what we do. And more specifically, when we work in healthcare, I think a lot of our purpose comes from this. Like, I don't think a whole lot of people are going into healthcare for the glory, right? Like, it's not that sexy of it. Like, there's some bad stuff. Like, you know, you're going to be mistreated occasionally. Like, you get that there are disgruntled patients and hospital administrators. Like, there are people that are going to make your life hard. And you still decided, this is what I want to do. I want to show up and take care of patients in this way. So we don't go in it for the glory. We go in it because it's part of this purpose. It's how we identify. So how was that process for you navigating leaving that job that meant so much to you, that you kind of even had your eye on before you became a PA because you knew of that attending? How did that work, and how did you kind of grapple with and come to terms with that?
That was really hard because, like I said, a lot of my self-perceived worth was tied up in that job because I thought it was so important. And I had this, you know, important role, and that must have been such a big responsibility. And, you know, I think because we all want to help people, I think there's a certain part of people pleasing that's intertwined in that, right? You want to help somebody because you want to make them feel better. That's why we get into medicine. But there's also a people pleasing component kind of interlaced into there. And then whenever you define yourself by the role that you play, right, that just becomes ingrained in you. People pleasing. You're always people pleasing. And for me, if I wasn't performing and didn't get positive feedback that I was performing well, then I was in a tailspin, right? And I think that is another part of always saying yes and doing more, because you're always looking for more of that feedback of, yes, you're doing a good job. Yes,
Atta girl.
Yep. Yeah, that was really hard. That was really hard to untangle in my mind. It's really taken me, because it'll be about 3 years since I've last left that job. It's really taken me a long time to untangle the fact that who I am is not the role that I perform, that I'm more important as a person aside from the things that I'm capable of doing.
Yeah. And that whole sentence is, you are more important as a person, period. It doesn't need any justification. Like, you are worthy enough, you are enough, period. And it doesn't come from the value you add to the practice, like the relationships that you have with your patients. Like, do those things matter? Yes. Is that who you are and what makes you worthy of love and praise? And no. But we do. We just associate. And I think this happens, like for me, I was like in the 3rd grade, like doing well in math, right? So my parents were like, great job, Tracy, you know, like keep up the good work. And I associated like, oh, if you try hard, if you do well, then you get patted on the head, right? So like, then your brain is wired like, okay, achievement equals reward. Okay, great. Listen, at work, like project achievement equals reward. Like, right? Like what else? Like what else can I be trained to do? And you start to prioritize the wrong thing. And I'm hesitant to even say wrong, but it's just not the thing that's going to end up like fulfilling and with you having a healthy relationship with work.
Because it's a bottomless pit. You just keep dumping more and more things that you can check off your list of doing. I mean, I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. I was working a 50 to 60 hour a week job. I was teaching a class for the PA school here. I was precepting 10 students a year. I was also helping out with skills labs at the school on top of the class that I was teaching. And I have a side job. Like why do I need to do all of that? And then all of the committees and things that, you're asked to sit on because it's part of your career ladder. And not that those things aren't important, like you said, but when do you draw the line of, I don't need to do all these things to say that I'm a good person?
Or to feel worthy as a professional.
Right? Why can't it be enough just to go to work and do my job?
Yeah, it can. To the person listening who's wondering that, like that is enough. That is plenty. You are doing probably more than enough, like consider scaling back. But also here's a reminder that what you're doing is plenty, that they are getting their money's worth, that, your patients are well cared for, and that you are doing a really great job. So tell me what your work week is like. Tell me what your schedule is like, why it's so much better when you compare it to that 50, 60 hour a week and situation that you were in before.
Well, I started saying no to a lot of things, right? As much as I loved teaching my surgery class for the PA program, I gave it up. I had to start. I was just at such a level of burnout and overwhelm that even leaving that job wasn't enough. I had to mitigate stressors and really scale back. So I started saying no to a lot of the things that I was doing. I gave up my class. I gave up skills labs. I gave up taking students. I scaled back on my part-time job, like my little side hustle job. And really just, for that 8 months that I was in interventional radiology, just let that be my job. All I did. I didn't read journals. I didn't, I wasn't trying to do all of the things like I was before. So I think that was really, really crucial in letting my brain stop and reset. And when I didn't have, anything to do, so to speak, I would go for walks in the hospital. I would just take walks, and there were, we have these great saltwater fish tanks, and I'd go and I'd sit and look at the saltwater fish, because I knew that I had to bring it down, and it was going to take some time, and I couldn't keep putting myself in that go mode because it wouldn't make anything better. So that's what I did for pretty much for 8 months is, hang out, sign H&Ps, take walks, look at the fish, and
you recovered.
Just try and recuperate. Exactly. And that is really I've really tried to maintain that now, right? When my work is done, I leave. I don't go check into the office. I don't go to all the other rooms that are running and ask and say, does anybody need help? Because guess what?
Someone will say yes.
They'll let me know, right? There's always, there's always something to do. The work is never done. But if they need help, somebody will reach out, right? For instance, today, I needed to get my daughter to gymnastics. And I told my attending, I said, hey, I turned into a pumpkin at 6:15 today. If we're still working, I got to go. But there were residents there who could take over that role. Whereas previously I would have stayed. I would have been like, nope, can't leave. Got to stay. Case isn't done. I just say, I got to go. I set these boundaries, and I keep with them. If it's a day where, I don't have any ORs, I'm not waking up at 5:30 in the morning to run into the office to sit there and wait for a phone call that may or may not come. I will get up, I will wake up, get my kids off to school, get myself ready, and then I will go into the office. I'll say hi to everybody. I'll hang out for a few hours, and then I come home, and it's more of the same. Like it still feels a little bad to say it, but I don't go looking for work.
That's what I was going to say. So I actually wrote that down. I was like, here's what she did. So you took the time that you needed to recover. So you said, I am burned out. I'm overwhelmed. I'm redlining every day. So first what you did is said no to a bunch of stuff that used to bring you joy, but no longer aligned with your values during this season. So you said these things are good, right? Skills lab and precepting students and teaching them about surgery. Like those are all good, valid endeavors. Someone else can do it. During this season, they figured it out, right? All those students still became PAs. You're not the one person. And we do this a lot. Well, if I don't precept them, who will, right? We think they're just going to like disappear into a black hole, like you're the only one. Like, sorry, I don't want to burst your bubble, but you are not the only one who can precept those students. Someone else can do it. So you said no to a bunch of things and you trusted that the universe would take care of it, that someone else would step into those shoes and do those things. And you stopped looking for work outside of what was being asked of you.
Absolutely. And my attending reminds me of that because also say, hey, do you need anything? He's like, Melissa, stop looking for work.
I love it. Yes.
He sort of, like I said, it was very honest, when I interviewed where I was coming from and what I didn't want to do anymore. And, he's of a younger age where he can appreciate that people need to have boundaries to be healthy. And he will remind me, Melissa, don't go looking for work. And I go, okay, all right. And that's, that's pretty much my week. OR days kind of vary. I will maybe have one day a week where there aren't cases, and that's what I'll do. I'll sleep in, get the kids on the bus, go in for a couple hours in the office, check the inbox, wait for something to happen, and then if it doesn't, I leave.
Mm-hmm. And you can enjoy that flexibility and that inherent benefit of your job without feeling guilty. It's a blessing to have that flexibility. It's a blessing to have that margin. And I think it's a work of, it's a reflection of the work that you've done on yourself to say, like, I can enjoy this. Because someone who just sort of jumped out of the frying pan and into the fire, went from one high stress job to another, but didn't take that time to heal and build those boundaries and be intentional about the job that you were looking to do and what you didn't want to do, would be staying late, going into another OR and scrubbing someone out. They would still be going to round in at dawn when the residents are there and you're not really needed. And the reason that would have happened is because you would still be chasing that validation.
Yep. Still in that mindset.
Yes, you feel valid and you feel that you are valuable and enough without me having to say it, without your attending having to pat you on the head, without some colleagues saying, wow, we couldn't do this without you.
They're still there working right now while we're sitting here talking, and it's fine.
And it's fine. I think, and it's fine is the most important part of that statement. And it's fine. And what you mean by and it's fine is, and I'm fine with it. Like, I'm going to sleep well tonight knowing that like somebody else is responsible for things. Because if you can't shut your brain off, you just keep going and going and going and going. And it's like your day never stops.
Yep. You also have to turn off the messaging component
yes.
of whatever, phone mechanism thing that you have for charts. Turn it off. Turn it off. Like when you're done and you've left for the day, turn it off.
I used to have years ago my work email on my phone, like the app, and I had notifications turned on. And I used to work for this massive group. So we had 14 surgeons, 10 advanced practitioners, and we would do a sign out email, end of the day, 5 p.m. Here's the sign out. But all night long, the surgeon would be doing cases, testicular torsion and a sepsis.
And they're adding on. They're adding on and resending. Yes,
they're
I know that email.
all night long. They're replying all. So I would roll over, my alarm would go off, and I would look at the email, and I was an inpatient rounder. So like if you were in the office, you probably didn't give a shit, right? You were going to the office. Didn't matter. You had a 9 o'clock patient. I would look at the email and immediately like dread would wash over me because I would see, when I left last night, my census was 12. Like I was like sitting pretty. And then holy crap, there's 8 more. Yes, 2 of them are critically ill. Like 3 of them haven't been seen. Like these people need to go to the OR. And it would be like 4 a.m. and I'm already on, right? I've already activated that stress response. I'm stressing about, I'm not going to be at the hospital for 2.5 hours, but still I'm worrying. I'm triaging, I'm doing, what I need to do, who's bleeding badly, who needs to go where. And then I would miss the period of time where I could have spent time on self-care. I could have connected with my husband or my kids. I could have been present for the ride to daycare. I was already at work. And it cost me 3 hours every morning for 3 years. And you can't get that time back. So you need to find a way to like, do not disturb your Tiger text. Like don't have your chart log in on your phone. This is one of my favorite strategies is when they call you and you're like, oh, sorry, I'm on vacation. And they're like, don't you have your phone? And you're like, oh no, I don't have any of that stuff installed. And they're like, that's a requirement. And you're like, I'm not even working right now. Find someone who's in the state that we live in who can do this, ask for you, or gasp, the person calling you is a physician who can do it themselves.
I got a call when I was out of the country and thought I could try to work through it.
Yes. Like, I'm going to figure this out. Like, I don't need computer access. I'll just call the pharmacy and then call the family and then call the pharmacy again. And you're like, why? Like, why am I trying to solve
that?
Yes.
One person in Punta Cana and 30 other people in Pittsburgh who can navigate this thing. Why?
Why? No. It's like funny because it's ridiculous, but it also kind of makes you want to cry because it's so ridiculous that has become 2 things. 1, the thing that we expect of ourselves, and 2, the thing that the healthcare system has trained us that it expects from us. That it has said you have to sacrifice yourself, all of your time, whether you're on the clock or not, whether you're in the state or in the country or not. Like, it's mine.
Yeah, all of it.
It's so crazy. If the healthcare system were a boyfriend, we would have dumped him like so long ago.
Oh my gosh. So abusive.
So needy, right? Like just like terrible. And then they like, it abuses you. And then it's like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, you know what? That's okay. I can do it. It's fine.
It's just like so bad. Right? And I think the solution to this is not some like political healthcare reform policy corporate bullshit. I think the solution to this is each of us doing what you did, drawing a line in the sand and saying, never again. Never again will I be treated like this. Never again will I work in this position. Never again will I do this thing that you asked me to do that compromised my integrity, my health, my family, whatever it was. You draw a line in the sand and you say, I will never again do that. And if you're not willing to do it for you, do it for someone else.
But I think the bigger part is like, you have to realize what this is doing to you, right? How can you effectively care for, this goes even past your patients, your family members, your friends, your neighbors. How can you care for anybody else when you're not taking care of yourself? If you're not putting yourself first, right? How can you put anybody else first? I mean, my patience was nil with my small children.
Oh, yeah.
None. And they're just being little kids, you know?
That was me. I would go to work. I was on, right? Like I was amazing. Like there was nothing getting past me. I would never have spoken to my nurses, my coworkers, my boss, the way that I was speaking to my family, because I was so spent by the end of the day that I would get home and my husband would be like, oh, did you want to have like fish tacos or beef tacos? And I would be like, pick something. I just like couldn't. I'm like, I can't make one more decision. I can't deal with one more demand. Like my kids would be like, Mom. And they would be like, I just want to show you. I just want to share with you. I just want to tell you. And I could not muster even pretending to be in. And it breaks my heart now looking back of all of those moments that are lost, that I served up on a platter to the healthcare system and said, here, take my time, take these memories with my kids, take these positive interactions and make them terrible because I served you up here first and foremost, before me, before my husband, before my kids. And like, that's not what I want to model for them. I don't want my kids to like feel like that's normal, right? To like have a job you hate and just like come home and just hate on everybody that you're supposed to be loving on.
And have nothing left to give, right? I think there was like a little quote that I saw that said, don't accept criticism from somebody that you wouldn't ask for advice. And I think about this office manager of mine and I thought, why did I let her bug me so much? Because this is somebody that I would never, ever in a million years go to and say, hey, what do you think I should do with my kids? Right? But I think, again, it just goes back to that wanting to please so that you're told you're doing a good job. And it's almost at a no matter what cost level, you know, especially when you give more and more and more. That's really what it got to for me.
And that is a slippery slope because we want to be needed and busy and necessary. And I think as PAs particularly, we're in this profession that's relatively young and we're really trying to, across the board, establish ourselves as practitioners who have these skills and abilities. And sometimes that leads us astray because when someone says, you can do that, there's like a hashtag, like your PA can, right? Your PA can, and that's me, so I can. And you automatically say yes before you think about, well, how will that actually affect my day or my life or my schedule? You say, yes, I want to be on the compensation committee. Yes, I want to be on the scheduling committee. Like, I'm going to prove to you that I can add value in every area possible. But what we end up doing is spreading ourselves too thin, diluting our impact, and we end up doing things that we don't give a shit about, which is not the best version of you, is sitting on some committee that you don't care about. Like, if you're passionate about scheduling, I don't know if that's true for anyone in the world. If you're passionate about scheduling, get on the scheduling committee. But if you don't care, say no.
Don't do it just because you think somebody else thinks it's a good idea for you.
Yes.
I like stop so many times.
Stop shooting all over your schedule and your life. Like, just stop doing things that you think you should do. And also, while we're at it, can we please stop feeling like we should be somewhere else, right? Like, I should have been further along at this point. I should have had, I see that person is now the head of the department, like their department. Suddenly you're looking around and you don't even want to be a leader, right? You're like, I have no desire to work in leadership or administration, but you see it and then you're like, I'm tempted to do that.
Yeah, right? Because you're like, so-and-so was 2 classes below me and look at them now. But then I fall back to, this new mindset that I've been in where I'm really happy managing myself. And I'm very grateful for the group of doctors that I have that let me do that. I also am aware that my previous job gave me all the skills and set me up in a manner to be able to do that for myself. So I'm grateful for that. But this is like, if you just say, hey, Melissa, here's your job. This is what we need you to do. And I'm going to go and do it. And I don't have somebody checking to see where my car is in the parking lot. It's like the best thing in the world to be able to self-govern myself and get my job done the way that I know that it should be. And I'm not skimping, I'm not cutting corners, but to be able to manage yourself without somebody overseeing you, especially somebody who doesn't even know what your job is.
Doesn't get it.
Has been the biggest blessing for me. It really, truly has.
Because can we just agree that if you are professional enough to take patients' lives in your hands and, work the job that you're doing at the level that you're doing, that you're also professional enough to like show up on time and be where you need to be and not be like micromanaged by someone who has nothing better to do than like, what time did you come in today? Like, this is not, no.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So if people want to hear more about your story or connect with you or be able to kind of send you messages of thanks for sharing your story with us, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Oh my gosh, I'm so flattered because I'm just Melissa who works in Pittsburgh who happens to be a PA. Like I'm not like a podcast star like you are.
That's okay.
Let's see. What is my Instagram name? I don't even know.
We're dying to know.
I don't even know what I put in it. It's Melissa Kolowitz. So my first and last name all together. And I believe that I am the same thing on Facebook as well.
Perfect. So people can reach out.
I'm on LinkedIn as well. Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. How about that? I have social media profiles.
Well, Melissa, thank you so much. I truly, deeply believe that sharing stories of burnout and overwhelm, and most importantly, overcoming those things, hold deep, deep power for us as a profession and for the people that hear this. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate it.
Is it just me, or do you wrap up these episodes feeling amped up about creating a grassroots revolution in healthcare? One where we know our own basic needs and where we defend those basic needs with healthy boundaries, where everyone has the ability to find their unicorn job and live into their passion and purpose as a PA. Thank you, as always, for tuning in to The PA is In. If this episode helped you at all, if the stories we shared and the information that we shared impacted you in any way, if it touched your life, improved your life, or made you feel a little less alone in this big, bad world of healthcare, I'm so glad the show is meeting you where you're at. Could you do me a favor? Could you head to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating and a written review about what touched you about this episode? What helped you from this podcast so that other PAs just like you who are scrolling through iTunes searching for a podcast that is going to serve them in the same way can read your review and know that this show is worth the listen. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for tuning into the show by PAs for PAs, where we help you to design your life so you can live long and prosper. It's your turn to get inspired, take effective action, and become one of those unicorn PAs who loves their job, has abundant energy, time to spare, and financial freedom. That's all for now. This PA is out. Congratulations. You've just joined an awesome club. By listening to a full episode of The PA is In, you are officially on the Unicorn PA team. Welcome aboard. What most team members do is they subscribe to the podcast because that allows them to automatically get the latest episode of the show. The life of your dreams exists on the other side of taking action. Keep making small shifts and keep getting better. Your life will improve, your career will soar, and you will have the confidence you need to create your own success. I will see you in the next episode. This PA is out.